For more on Trump trade and the agenda there, let's welcome Miriam Sapiro. She served as deputy and also acting U.S. trade representative. She's managing director and vice chairman of SVC Public Affairs at consulting firm Zard Verbinen. And Ambassador, thank you for being here. It's good to see you.
It's great to be back.
Let's talk a little bit about the situation with China trade. We've had people from both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, who have said they agree that the president should be taking a tougher stance right now. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think we do need to take a tough stand in order to get a deal. But what's critical right now is that we're at an impasse. Both sides have dug in. And at the moment, business leaders are truly worried that it's not clear whether and how this is going to end. So we do need to be tough, but we also have to be savvy in how we go about trying to reach a deal and making sure that at the end of the day, U.S. companies will be better off and not hurt by the tariffs and the retaliation that we're seeing now.
How do we do that? That's a pretty tall order.
Well, there's a glimmer of hope in that the G20 meeting is taking place next month, towards the end of next month in Japan. Both leaders will be there. So if cooler heads prevail and both sides can start talking again, then there's a chance that we might be able to see some progress before that G20 meeting.
I was wondering if you could talk about this number of U.S. sales in China in context of the overall U.S.-China trade relationship. How do we think about that? Is that a good part of the relationship? Is it a bad part? How do you put it into context?
Well, it's a good part because it does help the bottom line of U.S. companies. But the challenge, and this was just said, is that the number could be so much bigger if U.S. companies weren't facing restrictions in China. So whether it's forced transfers of technology, whether it's theft of intellectual property, whether it's a whole range of restrictions that are still limiting the ability of U.S. companies to operate, and frankly, that have caused a lot of U.S. companies to pull out. Those are the kinds of changes that the U.S. government wants to see China make. But we also have to be creative in how we get there. If it's a my way or the highway kind of approach, then that's not likely going to lead to a deal, and we'll just have a continued standoff, which would not be good for either side.
That's my understanding, though, is that is the big sticking point right now. So how do you do it if you're... I mean, from what I understand, those big sticking points were seriously a problem. The idea of whether China's going to legislate those changes or just say, yeah, we'll do it down the road. Would you trust them to say, yeah, we'll just do it down the road at some point?
Trust and verify, like we say in arms control. So there's different ways when you're negotiating to get to the objectives that you want. Sometimes it's linear, and sometimes you have to zigzag a bit. And you can take certain deliverables up front, and then you can have a clear process for things that you want to see achieved on a timetable. So I think if the U.S. shows a bit more flexibility and creativity and can get the Chinese to come back to the table, which I think will happen because the Chinese realize that a trade war is not in their interest either, then I think both sides might be able to rekindle that hope that we all had a few weeks ago that there really would be a deal in sight. And it doesn't mean that all changes are going to happen right away, but there does have to be a clear path towards the kind of changes we want to see.
You know, some of the initial reporting that was done on that was that the Chinese wanted to set a timetable of 2025, which would be after President Trump is out of office, even if he wins a second term. Do you think that's a coincidence?
Well, 2025 is also the Chinese
2025, brand new 2025, right?
Yeah, so they put other significance on that number as well. There were a number of sticking issues, but again, you know, as in any negotiation, if both sides really want to get to yes, it can take a while, but chances are you will be able to get there if you stick to the core objectives, but also realize that the other side has constraints, and you try to figure out where your objectives align and where they don't. Is there another way to try and get there? That's key, and that's true with any negotiation, whether it's with China or another country, whether it's on trade or another subject.
Ambassador Sapiro, thank you for your time. It's good talking to you.
My pleasure.
And Steve, happy birthday. You thought you were sneaking out of here.
To you.
I was hoping to get away without you being recognized.
To you.
No such chance. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Glad to spend the morning with you.
Yes,
Are we
thanks.
supposed to, how old are you?
No.
It's got to be a Grateful Dead
He's gonna
version
sing
of
you
Happy Birthday, isn't
There
there?
isn't, really. There is. It's a good question, but there isn't. Yeah, there ought to be.
Figured that'd be up your alley.
Get Bob to sing it for me.